Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Yeah. I'm Matt Green. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I want to thank Kevin for asking me to come here and share with you guys today. And, it's a blessing to get to do anything in Alcoholics Anonymous, even though I didn't want to be. I'd hear in meetings that people say if I took one more drink, I'd die. If that would have been true for me, I would have took one more drink. I hated Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't want to be sober. My sobriety date is January 26, 1987, and that wasn't my original date. I was stupid enough for 12 years to try to get a better date. It always got worse, never better. I love, John sounded enthusiastic about H&I, and so am I. My sponsor told me that as sick as I was, I had to get involved in every part of service in Alcoholics Anonymous to find out where I fit. And so I've done everything. But H&I is where I really love it. And I started going in the jail. I'm glad they didn't make me wait 6 months or a year. I'd been drunk. My first week sober, they sent me to the jail. And that was so long ago, we didn't need a clearance then. You just said we're from AA, and they let you in. And at 28 days, I got my own panel in. And ever since that date, I've never gone ever in sobriety without a service commitment in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've always had a service commitment of a panel, of being a coordinator somewhere in the hospital and institution committee. It's like you get involved. A lot of people always ask me, how do you know so many people? I get the privilege of doing this a lot all over the country but the people that I really admire and respect are the people I've met traveling, going in and doing the institution work, and because I've gone into prisons all over the United States, and that's been an awesome blessing to get to do that, and I just wish other states would allow us to go in a lot easier than California does. As a matter of fact, I can't even go into prisons anymore because they revised the security policy, and even though I went in 3 or 4 times a week for 10 years, now I'm too high of a risk because all my felony convictions. And I guess they want saints to go in and talk to people about AA, I guess I should tell you a little about my drinking. You hear around here a lot that people start drinking. Like one of the speakers last night started at 12, and the first thing I thought of is, why did he waste so many good years he could have been drinking before that? I hated life. I don't ever remember liking life till I worked the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Even before I took a drink, I hated it. I didn't fit in. I didn't feel like I had the right parents. I never had the right dog. I didn't live in the right town. All that stuff was going on, and I waited a long time to take a drink till the summer before the 4th grade. And my parents are getting a divorce, and I can't handle this madness going on in my head. I can't shut it off. And our book says we're selfish and self-centered. It's the root of all our problems. And never until I worked the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous did I ever think about, well, you know what, I got brothers. I wonder if they feel the same way. I wonder if other people in the world where their parents are getting a divorce feel the same way. I never thought of that. It's all about me. This is only happening to me. And I lived in this little tiny hick town, and everybody knew everybody, and they would tease me, and I'd cry. You know, I was a scared little wimpy kid, and I couldn't fight, and God, I just hated it. You know, I can remember thinking, you know what? If I wasn't on this earth, things would be better. You know, but you can't talk to anybody about that, and to shut that madness off. In our minds, it's funny how we picture things. You know, Clancy talks about it being a disease of perception, and we perceive things. It's like the bad stuff don't happen in this stuff, just the good stuff. And I remember thinking, you know what? My parents had these parties, and people drank, and they enjoyed life, and they laughed, and it was good times, and that's what I wanted to be like. I didn't want to be feeling all this crap and thinking this stuff, and you know, through the inventories, then it came back, oh yeah, there was cops there. Oh yeah, there was fist fights there. But see, my mind don't remember all that crap. It remembers drink, have a good time. So I went and got my mom's Bacardi rum, and I started guzzling. I didn't know you were supposed to just drink it. I was guzzling it, and it started going up and down. And I held my hand over my mouth and my nose, and went up and down about 20 times, and finally settled down there. And it wasn't all wonderful. It tasted like crap. But what it did was that madness that was going on inside me was still there. What the alcohol did for me, the effect that it produced, that, you know what, no matter how shitty the world is, it's okay. And, you know, I was to chase that effect for a lot of years. Just to take a drink, not to get rid of all the madness and all the crap. It was just to be okay with the madness. That's all. That's all I wanted. And the buddy well, he wasn't my buddy then, the guy who lived across the alley, I couldn't stand that kid. But his parents were alcoholics, and there was a bottle of hot Thunderbird on the kitchen table all the time. So that guy became my best buddy, because it's a little hard to get booze in 4th grade. And so I would just tough it out every day, these kids picking on me at school and hating life, and my parents are divorced, and we don't ever see them. They're in the bars, and till after school, and I could get to that hot Thunderbird, man, and because I knew everything would be okay. And it worked so good, I got to thinking, you know what? If I could get over there and get some of that hot Thunderbird before I went to school, maybe school wouldn't be so bad. And so in the 4th grade, I started being a morning drinker. And that first day of drinking hot Thunderbird and going to school, and the first kid picked on me, I whipped his ass. On the way to class, I whipped 4 kids' ass, man. It spread like wildfire through the school, man. Don't mess with this Matt Green kid. He's crazy as hell. He'll whip your ass. So overnight, man, drinking before school, it told me, you know what? You're the big shot on campus in the 4th grade. You know, nobody will screw with you. And I found out at a real early age that, because I was always afraid that you would find out how I felt. And I don't know where that came from. Just, you know, I just believed the way I thought was just, it wasn't right. It was wrong. It was, I don't know. You were going to be punished. Something was going to happen if you found me out. And so I found out if you're really crazy, all the other kids stay way away from you because they don't want their asses whipped. And if you're a guy like me, that's a safe place. Because then they can't find out you're really full of fear inside. And that got more progressive as it went along. And you know, it's like I didn't realize that it doesn't have to be alcohol. That just more of everything is always better. I mean, so your buddy gets a new bicycle for school, for Christmas, and you can't be outdone. So, you know, your parents are divorced. You don't see them. You don't have money. You got to steal to get anything. And I mean, I was a good thief. And you go out and you steal a bicycle because your buddy's got a brand new one. You get home and And that fear set in. His is probably better than that one you stole. Better go steal another one. And by the time you steal the fourth one, because you're not sure if you got a better one than him, you say, oh, screw it, at least if it's one of these four isn't better, at least I got more than him. And you do those kinds of things, and you will get in trouble. And this little hick town I grew up in, I think the Clovis Police Department had a good idea, but it doesn't work on a guy like me. Because on Saturday, everybody came to town, and they handcuffed me to this fire hydrant with a can of silver paint. And the idea was people would come to the town, I'd be humiliated, and I'd quit stealing, I'd be a good boy. It's a good theory. But what they didn't realize is there's two kinds of kids in this world. The fire hydrant painting kind of kid and the non-fire hydrant painting kind of a kid. I don't care how bad you humiliate me, I'm not going to paint that fire hydrant. So they take you to juvenile hall. And you know you're going to juvenile hall and you're in full of fear because you ain't never been there. What's going to happen? Are you going to be the big shot on campus? And so when they take the handcuffs off and you get in the first door, you whip the shit out of the first kid. And it spreads through juvenile hall that there's this madman came in, Matt Green, don't fool with him. So you become the big shot in juvenile hall. You know, when I started running with the Hells Angels, and I really enjoyed that because way back in the early 60s, people were really afraid of us. And it's like we'd go into a bar and everybody, they'd bail out windows and everything just to get away from us. And that's a safe place for a guy like me, because if you're running for me, you can't find out I'm afraid. And so I really enjoyed running with them. And, and they had the nasty women. And, God, it was just, I wanted everything they had. And the night before my 13th birthday, I moved away from home. And I moved in with the president of the Fresno chapter of the Hells Angels. And I guess I got drunk enough that first night they handed me these pills, and I didn't ask them what they would do. I want to be a part of the deal. I just took them. It was my first blackout, but I don't remember what happened that night. I remember I can't wake up. I mean, I can wake up, but I can't get out of bed. Come to find out they were Mexican Reds, and they kicked my ass. But so they said, take this white stuff. You'll get out of bed and make it to work. So I took that white stuff, and man, it wasn't very long. I was up running around. And I get to work, and my boss, he got loaded and drank. And at that time, what I did for a job was I pulled these transmissions out, they rebuilt them, and I put them back in. Well, I was there a short while, and my boss kicks the creeper, and he goes, Matt, he goes, you must have took too much of that white stuff. You're not getting any work done. All you're doing is spinning around and around on the creeper. He goes, you better drink something and slow down. So, I don't know how you guys do, but I always overshoot the mark, man. Next thing I know, this guy's kicking my creeper again. Goes, man, you must have drank too much. All you're doing is sleeping. Better take some more of that white stuff, and I did. And I got home, and I was so afraid because, you know what, I'm afraid of drugs. Way back then, they talked a lot about how addictive drugs were. And I don't know, I was just really afraid of them. And I didn't want to take anymore, so I was drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. I couldn't go to sleep, and they said, well, try these pills, you'll go to sleep. And I did because I want to be a part of the deal. And even though I was totally afraid of what they might do, but that started another madness, to be able to drink the way I want to drink, and to take whatever it took to be able to function, to go to sleep, to work. And I started chasing this other madness. I'm getting arrested a lot, and I justified that, well, I don't stick needles in my arm. And when I turned 16, that went away. And I justified that, you know what, the world made me this animal. It's their fault. It's not my fault. I didn't want to turn out to be this way. So now my dream is to turn 18, because you know when you're a Hell's Angel and wearing your colors, and they arrest you and you go to juvenile hall and they call your parents, and that, even though they haven't seen me in years, it's just way uncool. I want to turn 18 and go to jail like the real guys do. I turned 18 and immediately my dream came true. I'm sitting in jail, and I don't know what you guys do when you get locked up, but when I get locked up, I'm always doing inventories. It's never about the drinking. It's like, because this armed robbery I did when I shot the cop, it was at closing time, and I was drinking tequila gold and eating orange sunshine acid, and so I'm sitting in a jail cell, and it's like, man, you know what? If I ever get out of this mess, I'm not going to eat orange sunshine and do armed robberies at closing time anymore. Drinking's okay. Drinking's not the problem. And the cops they screwed up, so I got off those charges, and I'm going to do something different. It's like, a guy like me wants to go to jail. You get more notoriety that way with the people you're hanging out with. Like, you really got to impress them scumbags. But my dream is to die when I turn 21 on my 21st birthday. Our book talks about being grandiose, and I want to, on my 21st birthday, I want to be on my Harley with a good-looking blonde on the back, and I want to rob a bank, and the cops got wind of it, and I come out, and luckily the Harley starts on the first kick, and I'm taking off, and they're shooting me, and they're chasing me across town, and by the time I get to the freeway, the local news helicopters is filming it, and I get on the freeway, and every time I go under an overpass, the cops are shooting me from different counties, and we're 6-7 hours into this chase, and they got national news filming it now, and I've been shot about 50 times, and finally me and that blonde, that Harley go end over end, and the motorcycle explodes, and I die. I go out in a blaze of glory, and this is going to be awesome. But so I got to wait till I'm 21, and so I wanted to start going to jail for like assault and battery and work up to shooting cops right before I die. Something to work for, huh? It looks good on your resume and stuff. So I get off those charges, and I think I need to slow this down, and everybody's getting married, and you know what? That's a scary place for a guy like me, because if you get married, you kind of got to show some feelings. And that's an unsafe territory for me. But I'm going to do it. So I checked with all 7 girls I'm engaged to, because more is better, right? And this one girl said she was pregnant, and back then if you got a girl pregnant, you did the right thing and you married her. And so we had this Hell's Angel wedding up in Reno, and I married her, and that girl either lied to me or we need to go in the Guinness World Book of Records, because that kid didn't pop out for 18 months. And that pissed me off. She's taking advantage of me. The whole world's always taking advantage of me. They're always screwing me over. So that marriage was never to end, and I shot another cop, and the cop screwed up again. I got off that. And I got an indictment for me in California, so you guys did geographics. I didn't. I'd moved to a different state, but that's not geographic. It's looking after your own house. This was before they had all the computers and all that crap. And so I'm in Nevada and Reno. I thought, you know what? If a guy like me could have been born in Reno, everything would have been okay. They got the bright lights. Things are happening. They got gambling. They got the free booze. You guys know about the free booze in Nevada, right? You give them your paycheck and they give you free booze. But I thought things are going to be different here, and this is where a guy like me needs to be, where things are happening. And I'm there 2 days. I'm sitting in jail going, how'd they find out I got here so fast? But I went up there not doing anything different. And so finally there's an indictment for me in Nevada. And you know, I'm barely turning 19, and I'm thinking, man, you know what? I got a long ways to go down. I'm 21. I need to slow down. And I know the Vietnam War is going on. Everybody's dodging the draft. I'll do my patriotic duty. I'll go join the Army. I can go over there and I can shoot people, and I won't get in trouble for it. So that's a big decision for a guy like me. I'm going to join the Army. I'm going to become a 10-star general. They don't have 10-star generals, but I'm going to become the first one. So I bought all this booze, and I'm guzzling it, riding my Harley back to Fresno because I got to join the Army where I grew up at. And I get there, and I'm really drunk. I'm looking at all those steps, and I know I'll never make it to the top. And you know, I had a feeling I'm going to be picked up on these indictments anytime, so I have to join the Army today. And you know how we always have a good plan A? I got to thinking, man, if I could rev this Harley up and do it just right, I bet you I could make it all the way up them steps and get to the landing, shut it off, go and join the Army. Everything would be cool. Sounded like a good idea. But somewhere along the line, that Harley went airborne, and I don't know if you ever tried to put brakes on a Harley when it's airborne, but it doesn't work too good. And so this next part's like the first thing I identified in Bill's story, where he said, I have arrived, because I crashed through the front doors of that recruiter's office, and I got that motorcycle shut down before I hit the back wall, and my hair's going everywhere, long hair, long beard, and oil from that oil leaking Harley everywhere. And I get up and I tell them, I'm the one you're looking for. They weren't real impressed, but I took all their tests, and they said I had to come back the next day. And I thought, man, can I survive out there one more day? You know, I lived in total fear that night, and I went back, and they said I couldn't join because it said there that, you know, they have my civilian record, that I shoot cops and stuff like that. And you know, through some people, some relatives and stuff I had in the service, and other people I knew, I got to go in that day. And this is a big commitment for a guy like me. So you know how we plan stuff in our head, right? Well, back then, everybody from California is going back east for basic training. I figured that's going to be a 4-day bus ride. So I buy all this booze and stuff for 4 days. When it came time to get on the bus, everybody from California, they were shipping them back east. But they called me off and put me on this other bus. I go, where's it going? They said, Fort Ord, California. From Fresno, that's only a 3-hour bus ride. And if you pay for all this stuff, you're not going to throw it away. So you drink it all and you take it all. And if you're a tough guy, you don't ride a bus. But, you know, I'm making this commitment to, you know, so the Army could straighten me out. And so I take up the whole back seat. And we get to Fort Ord, and those screaming drill sergeants are screaming at everybody. And these other wimpy kids, they go running off and do exactly what they tell them. I get to thinking, you all know that's a bad thing to do, but I get to thinking, man, you know what? They must not let them know I was arriving, because I knew they wouldn't be yelling. But I get to thinking, you know what? You know how a bus has a long aisle way down the center, and then at the end you turn right and you go downhill. I'm thinking, man, you're really wasted. But if you could build some speed up going down that aisleway, hang a quick right going downhill, if you get that just right, you could probably one-punch that drill sergeant and he'll go out like a light. Plan A worked real good. He did. He went out like a light when I hit him. As he was going over, I seen there was these 2 7-foot gorillas behind him. First 10 minutes I'm in the Army, I'm locked up in the stockade. Doing another inventory. One more time, it's not about the drinking. This inventory was a dumb decision to join the United States Army. And I don't know how you guys do when you can't handle the pressure or things going on, but I always cut and run. So I'm in the stockade, and you know what? This isn't fun anymore. It's time for me to leave. So when you escape, they don't provide you with a vehicle. So the first thing I came across because I need some wheels to get back to Fresno, and I found this abandoned armored truck, and I know it was abandoned because it was running and nobody was in it. Now, you don't believe in God, never have, never will, but it's about time things started working out for me, because after a short distance in that armored truck, I noticed there was a lot of money in there. And I used to say, when I got back to Fresno, I'm not greedy. I only took $60,000 out of it. That's all I could carry. And have you ever noticed how fast money goes when it's not yours? They caught me 6 months to the day later, and I didn't have a dime to make a phone call. The thing that pissed me off the worst was I just bought a case of beer, and they pulled me over coming out of the parking lot. It was all the last of the money I had, and I didn't even get to take a sip of that beer. And you know them cops probably drank it, because it wasn't even on my arrest report, And I asked them what they're going to do with that case of beer, and they go, "Oh, it's evidence." Evidence my ass. I'm going to drink it. "Oh, no, we don't drink it. We keep it for evidence." Anyways, so I got to go to the federal penitentiary, and because of the wartime, the Army got me out of there, and I went back to the stockade, and they decided they didn't want me anymore, so they gave me a discharge. So I'm not even 21 yet, and life sucks. Life's over. Nobody can straighten me out. There's no hope. The penitentiaries can't keep me. Jails, parents can't. Teachers can't. Army can't. I figured I might as well sit out and make the world pay for what it made me turn into this animal. All these surgeries, my saliva glands don't work for this shit anymore. So that's what I did. I set out to make the world pay. And I turned 23, and I used to say I didn't have no choice in my first meeting I went to. But I did have a choice. The judge told me I had the choice of going to AA 5 days a week for a year, or go back to prison for 2 years. Well, it don't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. So I go to these stupid AA meetings, and of course, I'm a Hell's Angel, and I can't be seen in Clovis going into AA meeting. I don't even know if they had them there then, probably, but so I go to downtown Fresno and Skid Row to this AA meeting. And I'm a contractor, and I do a lot of other illegal activities, and I just always have a ton of money. And I went to my first meeting at 23 years old, brand new Corvette, and I had over 50 employees. I had over $100,000 in the bank, and I pulled up in that parking lot, and there ain't a car in that parking lot looked like it'd make it out of there. And I go into that meeting, and man, it's just a bunch of old people. I mean, they were like 40 years old. And, I passed that up a long time ago, but they told me, and they called me boy a lot back then. I hated that. I'm a Hell's Angel, not a boy. And they told me that an alcoholic is someone that's lost the ability to control their drinking. That once they put alcohol in their system, they don't know when they're going to come home, if they're going to end up in jail or whatever. And I knew that was true for me. And so they talked to me about the first step that night, and I knew my life was unmanageable because I was on my 5th wife already. When I went home after that meeting, I told her, "Man, don't you ever question me why I don't come home and have girlfriends and stuff, because that's what alcoholics do." And I did. I didn't drink. I took a year medallion. I didn't drink that whole year. Well, it was 10.5 months. I figured it was close enough, so I took a year medallion. But I just went to their stupid meetings every day. And I would go to the bar after the meetings and shoot pool with my buddies. They're not going to tell me what I can do and can't do. And I did that on total sure will for 10.5 months before I took a drink. And luckily I didn't get tested, because they tested me a lot in the beginning for drinking. They didn't test for drugs back then. And so when I got the courts off me, I was out hot and heavy again. It was a short time later, I'm back in trouble again, and I'm back going to A again, and I just did that over and over and over. I'd get 9, 10 months, and every time I come back to A, which wasn't very long, I would do a little bit more than I did the time before and wonder why it didn't work for a guy like me. 10 years of going to AA, and now I'm on my 7th wife, and you guys didn't miss anything. It was all the same. If you wonder how you get married so many times that young, you marry a couple at a time. I think I did that twice. Be married to one girl, living with her, and marry someone else and move her into it. They tend to get a little pissed. But, and life sucks. I wanted to die for a long time. I'm 32 years old now. I was supposed to have been dead 11 years ago. I hate living. The suicide attempts had already started. I've been shot a bunch of times from the cops. I've been stabbed. The motorcycle wrecks. I've been pieced together a lot already, and I kick her out and she won't come back. And I get this brilliant idea that I'm not going to let another wife do this to me. So I grab a shotgun. I was really drunk and loaded, and I go over and I'm going to blow her brains out. And I stopped at 7-Eleven to celebrate, and I grabbed 2 bottles of champagne to celebrate it. And I went over there, and she wasn't home, and her neighbors were out there. They knew I'd been locked up in the psychiatric wards, like at Tascadero and jail and prison. And it just didn't matter anymore. And I kicked the door in, and I'm in there waiting for her. She wasn't home. I'm waiting for her to come home so I can blow her head off. And the SWAT team comes one more time. At this time in my life, I just can't shoot another cop. I don't know why. I just couldn't. But I can't go out and say, hey, I give up. I'm a Hell's Angel. Hell's Angels don't give up. How would that look if I went to jail and the word got out I just gave up? Can't do that. So I get to thinking again that my kid, the world deserves the punishment I give them. They made me this animal. But my kids deserve better. I got 3 kids by this time, all by separate mothers. And so I stick this shotgun in my head and I pull the trigger. And when I came to out of that coma months and months and months later, I was really pissed off. And they had every part of my body that could move or whatever strapped with leather restraints. I was hooked to life support systems. I have a plate that pops in my mouth, and I didn't have one then. It's a big hole inside there. This is a result of 87 major surgeries later put me back together. But so I couldn't talk, and this is all a blur out here, but I was 100% blind then. And the doctors told me on a daily basis, boy, you're going to die. There's nothing we can do for you. And that's when I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous again. I'm a product of what H&I does. Our purpose is to go in and carry the message, whether they stay sober or not. Our job is to go in and plant that seed, whether they stay sober or not. And the results are up to them and God. We're just to present it, and that's what they did. And I guess they noticed I needed extra help, and so they would come up every day and take shifts all day long, read me that friggin' big book. And so desperately, I want to tell them, I'm an alcoholic, but you know what? My case is different. You see, I'm blind and I'm dying. I wanted to tell them so desperately, but I couldn't because I couldn't talk without that plate. And they didn't come up there one day and read me that book. They came up day after day, week after week, month after month, and I hated it. It's like, man, don't you guys have anything better to do than come read me that friggin' big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? You know, I'm an alcoholic, but I ain't going to spend my time going and reading that big book to someone. I always got things happening. You know, I didn't realize that they seemed happy and they were alive, and I'm laying there wanting to die, wanting to tell them, well, I'm not like they are. And of course, I lived, and I started going to AA meetings every day. I was afraid the outside world, all the madness I created, someone would find out I was blind, and they'd take advantage. And so I lived in AA. You know, I got the sponsor again, and went to 3 to 5 meetings every day. I did the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, they would say, Matt, let's go to the coffee shop after the meeting. I'd say, oh, I hurt too bad. I got to go home and lay down. They'd say, oh, that's okay. We'll pick you up for the next meeting. And they'd give me their phone numbers, and I'd tell them how stupid they were for giving a blind guy their phone number. You know, that's how I did Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, because my case is different. You know, and I'm the only one there blind. And you know what? The miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous couldn't happen in my life because I expected you to do it for me. And you guys did. You guys came and gave me the ride. You got my coffee. You read me the book. You did the whole deal you're supposed to do in Alcoholics Anonymous for another suffering alcoholic. But you see, I expected you to do it because I'm different. I'm blind. I'm unique. It really pissed me off when another blind person came. I hated being there, but then another blind person came and they were taking part of my territory. I didn't like that. So without having a solution to my problem, the next couple of years I drank 4 times. And the last time I drank was January 25th, 1987. And I saved up all my pills for my surgeries because I knew there was going to be a day I couldn't even take being in AA because it sucks. So that night I took 455 synthetic morphine tablets and I guzzled them with 2.5 gallons of vodka. I knew that would work. What I didn't realize is there's a loving, caring, forgiving God, and if He's not ready for you to die, you're not going to die. You're just going to keep missing body parts. When I came to out of that coma and realized that fact, see, my whole body's wired in pin plates and muscle grafts and bone grafts and skin grafts, and I'm just all wired up. And I only have one original part left, and I thought if I keep drinking and using, I'm going to miss that part. And I don't know what got you to work the steps, but that was the main thing for me. Because I'm realizing now I'm not going to be able to die. And when I came to out of that coma, I was too weak to stand up, and I rolled on my knees, because I got to do something different. Even though I don't believe in God, I got to do something different. And I looked up and I said this cussing prayer, and I think God understands that it was the best I could do at the time. I made a deal with God. I told him I don't believe in you, but if there is a God, here's the deal. I'm going to do everything you ask of me. I'm going to do everything AA asks me. Like it or not, I'm going to do it. And the idea was that way, when it didn't work, I could say, see, I did everything, and it didn't work for a guy like me. But I wanted to make sure I did everything. I didn't leave nothing out so I could prove to you it didn't work for a guy like me. And I got the plan in my funeral in AA. This AA guru guy in Alcoholics Anonymous died sober. I'm hoping maybe I can live a couple more years. Maybe God will let me live a couple more years so I can do all this service. And everybody will just love me. And just, God, it's so sad that Matt couldn't get it. And, it took a whole day to plan this. Just sitting and thinking. And I get to thinking, man, you know what? They'll probably build a monument for me. You guys are thinking a little chicken shit monument. And I mean, we're talking a huge monument. I'm going to done all this service work. I'm going to be known all over the world. And so they're going to fly newcomers in from all over the world to look at this monument. It's going to be such a big deal, they'll build a tent city around it. And it's going to say on there, here lies Matt Green, died sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, got involved in every source of service he has, died unhappy. That was my goal. And that first meeting I went back to, I told him, you know, here's the deal. I'll do whatever you guys tell me to do. What can I do? You know, the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous started to work in my life because I started reaching my hand out. And the first thing they told me to do was, they said, boy, go out and pick up cigarette butts. That pissed me off. They called me boy, and Hell's Angels don't pick up cigarette butts. But I remember I made a deal with God, and so I got to give it a chance. And so I go out there and start picking up cigarette butts, and it worked over 18 years, so I still pick up cigarette butts. I'm not one of those guys in AA that, you know, now I'm sober a long time, I leave that for the newcomers. Kind of ticks me off if a newcomer gets there before me and picks a cigarette butts up. Once in a while, I got to kick the can over, so I got something to pick up. And I transferred that into, you know, why do I just do this in AA? Why don't I do it in the whole world? And so I go for walks every day, and that's, you know, I meditate, and I look for trash to pick up, you know, in my neighborhood every day. You know, at first I hated it because, God, this is going to look uncool, a Hell's Angel picking up papers, but I just did it, and now, you know, I just look forward to that every day, going for a walk and picking up trash to try to make my neighborhood, my world that I live in, a better place to live. You know, and the next thing they told me, boy, you're going to the jail. I was a week sober, and I didn't want to go to jail. I've been there 1,000,000 times. But I made that deal, and I said, okay, I'll go. And I've been going ever since. And I love the meetings at the jail. And you know, I went down there, and I hated it. And but I'll tell you what, you know, I thought about, I missed most of the meeting in jail because I was thinking about how much I hated it. But when I left that jail, and I got to leave when I wanted to leave, it was such a spiritual experience. It's like almost 19 years later, still going to jail all the time. And I still get that awesome feeling every time that last locked door closes behind me. And it's my choice of when I leave. You know, and I remember one time out the prisons, you know, I've gotten real grandiose and real big ego a couple times in AA. And this one time I had this Lincoln collector series, and I had it restored. And I thought it was just mystery running all over the country in this Lincoln, speaking at conferences. And I'm out at the prison, and this guy in the meeting tells me, man, AA's brainwashed you really bad. That AA shit sucks. And I told him, yeah, it sucks so bad, man, because I heard this on tape. So I told this guy, I go, after this meeting, AA sucks so bad, you're going to go back to your cell and hope like hell nobody thinks you're cute. I'm going to get in this nice, comfy Lincoln. I'm going to drive home, get home, and go to bed with my old lady and have a good time that night. And he cussed me out and everything. But, you know, I've always... you know, and a guy like me that likes that kind of stuff, I like having a captive audience. You know, they let those inmates in, and they have to sit there and listen to you. They can't get up and walk out, and I really enjoy that. And yeah, I also got involved in general service and intergroup, and volunteered at our central office. And I've held all the positions at my home group. I've never been a treasurer ever. I don't know why they won't let me be a treasurer. And I found out where I fit is in hospitals and institutions. I still do other service work, but I've never ever taken a break from H&I. I love it. I love the people that are committed, that do H&I work. I just love the sobriety they have, and being involved in that area of service, I've got to meet all kinds of people like Kevin and other people that are involved in Southern California, and I even got to speak at you guys' H&I conference one year, and it's just been the biggest blessing in my sobriety. And there's a lot of times I didn't want to go when I had a commitment, and this old timer we had, KB, he died with 58 years of sobriety after I'd been doing these institutions and all these meetings, 7 meetings a week and 7 institution meetings a week. I told KB, I go, when can I take a break? And he goes, when you die or you're having major surgery. It's like, well, when else? He goes, that's it, boy. I didn't like that idea, because I was getting tired, and I was a single parent. I had this little baby, and I'm blind, and I got this construction company I'm trying to run because I got my contractor's license back in sobriety, and I'm whining to my sponsor how tired I am, doing all these institutions and getting to bed late and having to get up early. And he'd tell me stupid shit like answers in the book. No matter what problem I went to with my sponsor, he always said, the answer's in the book. I remember telling him one time, man, you know what, there's no growth in your program. He goes, why do you think that? And I go, because no matter what problem I bring to you, you say the answer's in the book. That means you don't know. And he told me one time when I was whining about how tired I was, he goes, boy, did you ever get arrested for not enough sleep? All right. And the old timers taught me that when something major is going on in my life, that it's always more important to keep your commitments in. And because I thought I'd come into AA and everything would be wonderful, everything would quit happening. And if you're new here today, the friggin' world doesn't care if you're sober or not. It's still going to go on. You're still going to have flat tires. They seem to be in more convenient places. I've been in 4 major car accidents in sobriety. I just was in one about 3 weeks ago. We were in a van that rolled, going to a conference, and all 4 of those wrecks, they were major wrecks, and I don't know if it's because we're sober or what, but we've all of us in each vehicle and each wreck walked away without even needing a Band-Aid. That's unbelievable, and they told me you go and you keep your commitments no matter what, and let me tell you, you're going to hear a lot of crap in AA too. They're going to tell you keep coming back, it gets better. I'll tell you what my first year was like. I got indicted for income tax evasion for over $500,000 immediately when I was sober. I tried to let them know that I wasn't on the 9th step, and they didn't give a shit what step I was on. It was a short while later, and I was at a noon meeting, and my wife changed the locks on the door while I was gone at a noon meeting. And that really pissed me off. And when I go to my sponsor with these problems, he assigned another commitment for me to do. It's like, man, you just don't get it. I had emergency back surgery about, 4 or 5 months sober. And they told me I'd never walk again. I'd be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. And I got indicted for murder at 9 months sober. I remember going to meetings, man, saying, you know what, if this shit gets any better, I don't know if I could take it. But they kept telling me, boy, you have to go on the belief system that if it could work for us, it'll work for you. And I didn't think it would, but I went on that belief that just made me probably not. That someday, somehow, it might work for me. And it was really hard for a lot of years, you know, because I was having at least one 10-hour surgery every month. So I was having to detox off of morphine from the surgeries. And I hated it, you know, because I'm supposed to be a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And because of these surgeries, I got to detox off of narcotics all the time. And, you know, I just hate it. You know, they tell me it's part of what you have to go through. You can't go through those surgeries without it. And I just kept doing it. And they taught me when I'd have these surgeries to double up on my meetings, double up on my commitments, and get more involved in H&I. And it's like, God dang, man. You know, and I found, you know, going to the steps, and you get to that ninth step, and and another one was right away. The Clovis Police Department came over because I had warrants for my arrest, and they didn't give a shit that I wasn't on the ninth step either. So there's people in AA say you got to work these steps in order, but man, you know what? The cops and IRS don't give a shit. So you have to work the ninth step sometimes out of order. And you know, because I followed direction and I didn't like it, I asked my sponsor for help. Because I owed $1.2 million when I got sober. And if you do stupid shit like ask your sponsor for help, he'll take you to the grocery store and buy macaroni and cheese and top ramen. And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, I'm a good guy. I got all these commitments. You know, I deserve a steak. And he says, no, that's not your money. You owe it to IRS, and back child support, warrants, and hot checks you've written. And it's like, man, doesn't he understand? But because I followed direction, I paid all that shit back at 7 years and 2 months. I hated it. I kept telling my sponsor, man, I'm living worse than a welfare case, man. You know, thinking he'll cut me a little slack here and there. He didn't. But I knew there was a kid out there somewhere, and I needed to try to find this kid, and I couldn't. You know, I was having problems finding this kid, and, you know, her mother's probably remarried and changed her last name. And I kept, you know, KB kept telling me, pray about it, boy. Ask God to show you what you're supposed to do. And I'm up in San Luis Obispo speaking, and we're driving back, and we get gas in Paso Robles, and something's bugging me from inside to look in the phone book for my ex's number. And my sponsor even that was driving me, even goes, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. It's stupid. Because in my head, I'm going, man, she's probably remarried. We didn't even live in that town. You know, this is insane. You know, it's probably a kickback from the drugs years ago or something, you know, a bad trip. And so we leave. And about 20 miles out of town, I tell them, turn the car around. We're going to go back and look in the phone book. And I tell them what's going on. And I go, just so my friggin' head will shut off, we're going to go back and look. We go back and look in the phone book, and bigger and shit, there's her phone number. She lives in Atascadero. Now that, you know, I went to court on that years and years before that, probably about 14 years before that, and the judge told me scumbag people like me shouldn't be allowed to see their children. And if I ever try to find out anything about the child or her mother, that I'll go back to prison. So that was enough for me not to ever try. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, we got to clean that crap up. And I called, and she was 14 years old then. This girl answers the phone. I could tell it was a kid. So I asked for her mother, and she says she's not here. And I go, is she working? And she goes, yeah. I go, could you leave her a message that I called? And she goes, yeah. And she had to get paper and pencil. She comes back and she goes, okay, what's your name? And I go, Matt Green. And I heard this. I go, why does that name mean something to you? And she goes, yeah, you're my dead father. And I just wanted to die. You know, that one of my children would think I was dead. And I come to find out her mother had a year more than me being sober, and that pissed me off, you know. Because she said I could have a relationship with that daughter, and to this day we have an awesome relationship. The sad thing out of that, her mother got a resentment A and quit going to meetings for 8 years. Next month will be 2 years ago she committed suicide sober. Seems like it would have been easier to go back to A, but she chose not to, and dying became an option. My daughter, I helped her with all the funeral arrangements and the probate attorney and all that, and we left the probate attorney's office, and we're having lunch, and she started crying, and I asked her, "What's wrong, honey?" And she told me, "Dad, I'm so grateful that I have a sober father like you in my life." And she goes, "I just want to tell you thanks for being sober." And so now I'm bawling in this restaurant, and she's given me 2 grandchildren, and I have a 3rd one now. And my first is this flaming redheaded, I call her my flaming redhead dude. She's 9 years old, and she has long flaming red hair, and she always tells me, "Papa, I'm not a dude." And I got this 4-year-old terrorist, and I got a 9-month-old. And I might not have been a good father. Well, my youngest one I was. He just turned 21 this week, and he's been raised in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he's gotten to travel all over the world because of going with me speaking and the things I do in AA. But you know what? I'll tell you, I make an awesome grandpa. My daughter hates it because my grandkids know, I take them shopping every chance I get, and I've trained them to go get whatever they want, and come up and they'll say, "Papa, your plastic will pay for this, won't it?" You betcha, man. I do what grandpas do, man. I buy tons of chocolate for them and ice cream and cookies, and it's really cool because you can get them wound up tighter in a rubber band and you just send them home. I love that part, and there's bad things happen, but Alcoholics Anonymous gives you a way to handle it emotionally that you couldn't before. Like my parents died in sobriety, and my little boy almost died, and they told me he was going to die. They performed the wrong surgery, and thank God for the guys I sponsored that took care of me then, and thank God for the commitments I had in Alcoholics Anonymous. Even I didn't want to do it. My little boy's in the hospital dying, and I'm living at the hospital, and people like Jerry would come in, and we'd have meetings, and I'd go home once in a while to take a shower, and Jerry had just got a divorce, and my kid's in the hospital dying, and I'm just a mess, and he knocks on my bedroom door, and he wants to talk. In my mind, I tell him, "Man, my little boy is dying. What the hell do you have to say?" But we don't know. When we don't know how to handle something, we're lost, and that's what we do. We talk to other people. I took the time out to talk to Jerry about his divorce, even though I didn't want to. The book talks about, and that's how I ensure everlasting and permanent sobriety is working with another alcoholic. It doesn't say take some time off if your kid's dying. It doesn't say take some time off if you're living at your dad's and you're taking care of him in the last of his dying days. It doesn't say that. And because I've done that over and over and over, no matter what's happening in Alcoholics Anonymous, my life has always gotten better. I got married in sobriety. That turned out to be a nightmare. But what that did was it was an awesome marriage when we were both really super involved in the program and both walking along the same spiritual path. I didn't know marriage could be that way. And today I'm really grateful that God allowed me the privilege to know that. Because for a long time in sobriety, it's like, I'm never going to get married again. There can't be love. There can't be anything. And in a divorce, it's ended up being the longest divorce I ever had. It's almost 4 years now. You know, when I talked to my sponsor about it, he said, you know what, you get the lawyer. If your lawyer asks you for something, you get it for him, but you're to leave it to the lawyers and judges and God. Now, 1 out of 3, I don't mind leaving it to. That's God. The other 2, I don't know. But my job is to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a period after that. It doesn't say after you get your divorce solved. So my sponsor was on me a lot that, you know what, just get more involved in service while this divorce is going on, and I have. I'm more involved in service now than I think I ever have been. You know, and because I do that through this god-awful divorce, I've had some soundness of mind almost all the time. You know, along the way, I met this beautiful girl 8 months ago, and we fell madly in love. And it seems weird, 52 years old, and I'm finally figuring out what love really is. I love this girl more than anything in the world. You know, we don't get to see each other that much. She's real involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm real involved in AA. And you know, we're hooking up next weekend. She lives in a different town than I even do, and our commitments in Alcoholics Anonymous are more important than the relationship, and that's what we do. And we still talk every day. I talked to her right before I came in here, and she said to tell you all hi, and that she wished she could be here. And you know what? That, you know, I do that relationship just like they taught me. You know, that God and Alcoholics Anonymous and the newcomers come first, and that relationship comes after that. And I've done that. I've not put that relationship before anything, and that relationship seems to be working real good. See, I talked to my sponsor when I got in this relationship again because I don't ever want to be married again. I don't ever want to have a girlfriend again. It don't work for a guy like me. And he told me if I keep my focus on Alcoholics Anonymous and leave the results of that relationship to God, it'll work out if it's supposed to. And so far for 8 months, it's been the most amazing trip of my life. You know, I got to go to my youngest son's 21st birthday this last Tuesday, and you know, him and me were crying after the party, you know, at my ex-in-laws, and we're standing outside and we're crying, you know, and he was thanking me for being sober, you know, because his mother isn't, and he told me, Dad, he goes, you've given me the most awesome life that any kid could ever have. And I thought me being a blind dad and being super involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, my kids were going to suffer. And you know, my kids think I'm the greatest thing in the world. My grandkids think I'm the greatest thing in the world. You know, and I owe it all to you guys. I owe it all to H&I. You know, because you guys have taught me how to be this awesome father and grandfather and an awesome boyfriend. And you know what? I don't know. You know, I could go hours and hours. You know, I have guys come over and they, you know, we spend hours and they want me to talk a lot always about what the journey has been like in Alcoholics Anonymous. But my experiences have been in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, they like some of the Hell's Angels stories and stuff, but they mostly want to hear about the journey I took in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I can talk hours and hours on that because this has been an awesome ride. And I guess I'll close with this. You know, a little over a year ago, you know, I have to have tests done all the time because I'm not supposed to be alive, and my doctor believes in God, but you know, they like to look in books and say this is what's going to happen. And he's told me over and over again, sobriety, that I'm going to die, and you know, I had all these tests done again. I go in there and he's crying, and you know, he's been my doctor for 30-something years, and what's wrong? He goes, Matt, if your kidneys get down below 25%, they'll never rejuvenate themselves. He goes, only 8% of your kidneys are working. You're going to die. He goes, you need to start making some life-changing decisions because you won't see 6 months from now. So, oh, Doc, man, I know I'll live longer than that because I got commitments, you know. He knows I'm in AA, and I told him I got commitments for the next couple of years already, you know, speaking and doing different things. And I go, so I got at least that long. He goes, man, I'm serious. And I told him, Dr. Velasco, you know, it's like always before, I'm not going to die till God's ready for me. So you know what? You know, if I do die in 6 months, that means God's ready. It's not because of what your tests say. And I left there and I kept that attitude. And, you know, they took me off some of the medication I had that affect. Some affects your liver and some affect your kidneys. And they took me all off the kidney stuff. And I changed my diet some, but I just kept my focus on what my primary purpose is, and that's carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've been going in every 3 months having these tests done. And he was crying every time. He goes, I don't know why it's not supposed to happen, but your kidneys are rejuvenating themselves. And I was just in the doctor's office having all the tests done again last Monday, and he's crying again. It's, God, this is the weepingest doctor I've ever seen. He goes, man, I've been all over showing everybody all your test results. He goes, by all medical purposes, you're not supposed to be alive. He goes, your bone marrow, your kidneys, your livers, your lungs. He goes, there isn't any part of your body that isn't working at least 99%. And of course, I had to throw it in there. I go, I told you God does it down with me. And so what I try to do nowadays, you know, I try to keep commitments out at least a couple of years. I want to thank you all for having me. God bless you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.